Good morning or good afternoon, all of you. Thank you so much for joining the call. This is Siva Laki from MassMailer. I think it's the right time for us to start. It's already 6:03. Um, okay, so today I'm going to talk about a topic that is very important, especially when you're using Salesforce. Uh, Always going to be some other email notification that you would want to send. Sure, Salesforce has got its own features through workflows or process builder or flow. You can send email alerts, but the limitation in Salesforce is that you cannot really track the email events such as opens and clicks and everything. And the other flexibility that it does not provide, such as who is the sender, meaning if you want to use a different sender, attachments, and so on and so forth, what you're familiar with in Salesforce. So basically, the reason why you would want to use this feature, one, you want to track all the email alerts, and two, if you want to or if you think that the Salesforce email alerts are limited in its feature, then you can also use MassMailer email alerts. Okay? And how do we do this in MassMailer? So we want to keep it native to Salesforce, not really providing any other framework from scratch. So we depend on the Salesforce existing platform features such as the process builder, flow builder, or the cloud flow designer if you're used to. Meaning like instead of reinventing the entire platform, we basically want to use the power of Salesforce existing platform. What we have done is we've provided an Apex class that can be invoked as an action from the Salesforce Process Builder. And today, I'm actually going to demonstrate the Process Builder, not the Flow Designer or Flow Builder, even though it's possible to do it, the exact same thing. Perhaps maybe I'll try to talk about them in another webinar. We support both the standard or custom objects, and we also support the campaign object. And then we also support a drip campaign or sequence of emails, provided you kind of come up with your own logic on how you can send the sequence of emails. But today, due to lack of time, I'm just going to limit to only email alerts. And I'll have a series of webinars talking about these topics at length. Again, if you are familiar with Salesforce Process Builder, how to invoke another Apex class, this is how it will appear. Again, if you're not too technical, that's okay. Just assume that you're going to invoke MassMailer email alert by invoking this email via MassMailer Apex class, and then pass certain fields again at a high level. Taking a screenshot here, even though it can have more than this, more options than this that is shown. So the first field shows the record ID. Again, if you're in a context of a lead or a contact or a custom object, you just have to pass that object reference or the record reference. And the second option that you see is the template ID. Again, if you're not familiar with the Salesforce ID, just assume that every record that you create in Salesforce will have its unique identification value. Similarly, when you create a template, because MassMailer lets you use the Salesforce classic email template, the second option that you see here is nothing but the template ID value in Salesforce. I'll show you how to actually find out this template ID value so I can copy paste it. And the third option that you see here is the from name, and then fourth option is from address. Again, nothing to really talk about. It's quite easy. So when you're sending out email, you would want to mention who is the sender. That's all what it is. Again, it does not need to be hard coded. If you have some sort of a global constant or anything that you want to use that is already it's predefined, you can always do that. But typically, if you're sending out an email, especially if it's an alert, we safely assume that you know who is the sender. You can always construct it from a formula too. So there are other options that the Salesforce Process Builder provides. And then you would see the to name and to address. Again, this is quite common, nothing to really explain. But here, instead of hard coding the values, we have given a field reference from contact object. You can see that the contact first name is the to name. You can always use the full name or use the formula field to append first name, last name. However you want to do it, we leave that choice to you. And the to address, you can see that it's got email field. Again, it's a referential field that you're using at the time of sending out email, saying that, hey, I want to use contact email field. If you have any other field on the contact object, of course, you can use those fields as well. It's not limiting you to use only the standard email field, but you can always use it. So this is in reference to a contact object, but you can always imagine that if you replace contact with lead, the logic is the same. You start to provide the record ID and the to name fields, which are just referring to the lead object, and similarly any custom object. So that's at a high level on how you invoke this Apex class. Again, once we look into the real action, you will come to know how you can correlate where it is. And again, just want to kind of give you highlights on this email via MassMailer Apex class parameters. Again, if you're not technical, that's okay. Just assume that you can provide more options at the time of sending email. That's all what it means. I've kind of listed out various options that we support. Now I'm going to go through every single scenario while I'm showing you the demo, but at a high level, you can see the from name, from address, to address, and reply to, which is quite common. That's flexible. You can use those parameters. And then if you have additional to values, meaning additional to name, additional to addresses, you can mention. You can also do CC, BCC. And similarly, when it comes to tracking, you can suppress the activity logging, suppress Google Analytics tracking, click tracking, subscription tracking, open tracking. And also, if you want to suppress certain email status values, again, all it means is that, let's say, sending out an email, but you do not want to track the deferred email status value. You can just mention that, saying that you do not want to track that value in Salesforce so that you can save the storage, as an example. And then you can also, if you have IP pool that you created, provided you got more than one IP address, you can always mention a specific IP pool that you want to use by comma separated values. And if you have file attachments, you can always provide those file IDs as well as comma separated values. Again, this is just the unique ID that you're going to pass that Salesforce provides. And then if you wanted to actually have email preferences, meaning like not using a global unsubscribe, but you want to have email preference groups that are displayed at the bottom of the email, you can mention what is that email group ID. I mean, it's supposed to say unsubscribe group ID though. Okay? It's supposed to be email unsubscribe group ID. You can always schedule at a date and time. It's a little tricky. The date and time should be in the Salesforce date and time format, and you can schedule it provided you pass the schedule date and time value. And then if you ever wanted to send out emails to campaign members, we do have those options. Either you can send email like a single email alert to campaign member, or you can actually send kind of a mass email to all the campaign members. So these are the three fields that you're going to use. First one, that is target campaign member status. will let you filter which campaign member status values that you're going to send email to. If you don't mention it, then we basically send it to all. And then send to campaign members. So this is used when you actually want to send mass email to all the campaign members. You would just say, hey, I want to send it to all campaign members. Campaign ID is the required field. That way you can filter which campaign ID that you're actually going to use for sending out emails. So at a high level, these are the options that we have. And again, I may not have time to really go through all of this. If you just try to use the email via MassMailer Apex class, it shows the drop down, and you can pretty much kind of visualize as if you're sending an email from the UI, and what would be these options, and then just select those values, and you should be good. Okay. All right, let's take a look at a quick demo here. To start with, I'll go ahead and create a quick template, not a super complex one, just to kind of show you how you actually get the template ID, because that's one of the very important parameters that we need to provide to the Apex class. So I'm just going to say my lead alert email template. And then my lead email alert subject. Okay, so let's just go drag and drop text field there and a social icon there. And then you can always provide a merge field. This is sample email alert. Okay. And you could have the lead first name as the merge field. Let's just select the first name from there. And then this is the merge field, copy paste that value right there. And then save this and save to Salesforce. Okay, so I just saved this template into Salesforce email template. So let's go take a look at what is the ID value for this. So we don't show it here on the screen since you're gonna depend on Salesforce admin to really create this process builder, because it's not 100% user friendly. So you can let your admin look up the ID, the Salesforce ID for this template that we just created. Again, the way you can find the ID is by going to Salesforce Setup, and you can type in email template. So what we store here is in classic email templates. So we select that. And then under MassMailer, we just created this lead alert email templates. And then this has got ID value here. Again, if we are in the Lightning version, this may be a little confusing. So it is ideal that you switch to classic. Otherwise, I may get confused. What are those extra percentage characters? Okay, classic email template. And then go to my lead alert email template. And then you get this value. So you can see that it's now less confusing. So this is the ID value for this particular record. Just copy this. And that's what we're going to use in the process builder. Okay? So now, how do you go to process builder? Again, you go to the Salesforce setup, and then in this quick find, type in Process Builder, and that's how you come to Process Builder, and click on this new button and give a name. So let's call this as sample lead alert or lead response, for example. Right? You can give this description, copy paste on the same thing, and then whenever this process starts, whenever a record changes. So there are three values. Select the very first one, and again, if your use case scenario is quite complex, where you needed to kind of invoke this from another process, the third option would be the one. And platform event message is received. So this is a little bit advanced. Most likely may not be using this again based on your admin's design. He or she would know exactly what is the right way. But I'm just going to show you the very first option. A record changes means whenever we create a lead, we want to send a response email. That's what we're gonna mention in the second step here. So here we just created a simple process builder process. Just give a name so far, and then you can identify the object. For an example, if you want to send an email to lead, you just select that lead object, and then here it is showing two options: only when a record is created, or when a record is created or edited. Again, depending on when you want to send out email alerts, you are open to select either one of these options. For now, I'm just going to go select whenever the record is created. And then you don't want to select this option. Just want to make sure that I highlight that because this process to evaluate record multiple times in a single save operation. So you don't want to select this if you want to send email whenever the record is created. It's a little bit more advanced, so your admin will know when to use this. Most likely, you will not need that, but again, your admin will make a choice. So whenever a record is created, we want to send an email alert. Right? Now, you could have a criteria here. So, an example, the criteria could be the lead status or lead source. Right? So, for an example, if you want to see, if you want to have a filter value such as lead source, if the lead is coming from a specific source, for an example, web, right? Let's just say lead response criteria. You have various options here. You could have conditions, all the conditions are met. Formula evaluates to true or no criteria at all. So the various options that are here that you can choose, pick and choose. Again, your admin will decide based on the requirements, and then he would design this for you, or he or she would design this for you. You got the conditions as well. All the conditions are met, or are customized logic. Again, based on if you want to add more criteria, you can always do that by selecting other filter criteria. Okay. Let's keep it very simple. So we gonna fire off an email alert whenever lead gets created, and the lead source is the web. So let's just go save this. And now the immediate action. So this is where you are actually going to go send an email alert by selecting Apex. So remember, so in this action type, do not select email alert that is meant for Salesforce. So if you want to use MassMailer, you got to select this Apex, and then you can give a name here. So for example, you want to say send lead response email. and then you have an option of selecting email via MassMailer. So you notice this MassMailer do nothing. We have created this utility kind of a Apex class. Let's say you don't want to send email alert immediately. So this is an immediate action here. You want to send an email immediately, but you want to schedule this. Then you would actually select this do nothing option here. So let's say you want to say do nothing. And then you can actually set a schedule saying that I want to send an email maybe after, say, an hour. I'm just giving an example. After created date. So once lead gets created, do not do anything. But after an hour, if you want to schedule an action, you can do that by selecting the same thing, and then you can just say send email alert. Or send a lead response alert, whatever you want to say, and then email via MassMailer, and then you fill in the field. So this is basically if you want to schedule an email after some time, you could do this. So this is basically just to demonstrate how to do this via scheduled action. I'll just go ahead and cancel this and delete this, and then let's go ahead and delete this. Okay. So let's go ahead and create immediate action for now. So again, I'm just going to go say Apex send lead response email, and then find this Apex class. And here, again, as I said, the record ID field is a reference field. So basically, you just say you're going to use the lead ID as the reference. This is mandatory whenever you're trying to use Process Builder. You need to mention the record ID field, meaning you're just providing the context. And then template ID, as we created a template, so you're just going to go select that ID and then copy paste that template ID. And then here we're going to provide what is the from address. Let's say this is coming from hello at MassMailer.io, and then from name, there is no, it's not mandatory to keep them in an order. So it could be from name and then from address. And then to name. So here, instead of hard coding, what I'm doing is I'm actually selecting the field reference, which means that you want to send an email to a specific field, and then you also want to mention what would be the to name. So for lead, I'm going to just select first name. If you ever wanted to append the first name, last name, you can always create your own formula on fly and then append the first name and last name. And I'm sure your admin will know how to deal with that. And then you can mention what is the to address. So the to address, again, it's going to be a field reference, most likely, and then you just say the email field. If you have multiple email fields, and you can pick and choose which one you want to send email to. I'm just going to go select the standard email field called to the lead email. And you have a lot more options here as I showed it to you in the presentation. So I'm just going to go through this. So you have additional to names, suppress activity logging, suppress subscription tracking, file IDs, IP pool name, suppress click tracking, target campaign member status, CC, BCC, schedule time, date and time, campaign ID, suppress analytics, from address we looked at, send to campaign members, suppressed email status values, to name, to address, email group ID, time zone, from name, suppress. So you got all these various options, which I'm not going to go through every single one of them. This is just to demonstrate what all other options that you have. If you ever needed to say, you want to maybe send a file attachment, right? You can always do that by providing a file ID. That is again going to be a Salesforce ID field, or you could actually construct a formula field, provided you want to populate that formula field on fly, or you can have a custom field where you're storing that file ID. You know, it could be some logic that you use when which you store the file ID in the custom field, and then you can reference it. So there are various options that are available. We want to kind of provide you an option way in which you can also send an email attachment if needed. Right? Just gonna go delete that. So we got the basic values here. All we have done is we are sending an email out to lead. Template ID is hard coded. The value is hard coded, which means that's the template that you're going to use. And then from address and to address and from name to name. Let's just go save this. So once you saved it, you have an option to activate by clicking on this button. Just say activate, right? So now you've got the simple lead response email alert, right? And then now let's go take a look at this in action. Okay. So I will just go ahead and try to create a brand new lead. Just looking for the specific field that shows lead source. Okay, here it is. So the lead source, we have web as the criteria. So all I've done is just selected the lead source as the web, and then I've entered first name, last name, and the email address, and that's it. We are not even checking for the lead status, but again, you're free to check for the lead status as well. And or any other fields, any custom fields that you may have, or any other fields that would meet your criteria. So this is just a sample. And then you would click on this button called save, which means you have created a lead. And then our logic should kick in, which should basically send an email alert to this particular email address. And again, the sample subject is this. Just search for that particular subject. Okay. Sometimes the luck is not great and it has gone to spam. It could be because I'm environment where it is a test environment. It's completely not authorized for sure. So that's why it got into spam. But remember, when you get on when you actually get on MassMailer, we make sure that all your domains are authenticated properly. So it won't send this, it won't show the send.net. It'll show your domain And of course, the sender domain is also authenticated in this scenario. It's not fully authenticated since it's a demo environment, and that's why sometimes it may just end up in the spam. So otherwise, you would typically not have this issue. So now, talking about this email, you can see that we got the merge field that got created. It's a sample email that we sent, and we have the unsubscribe link that is by default. It got appended, and again, you can turn this off if you want to turn off the subscription tracking and in the email. You can always turn it off. That way, this does not get appended. I actually showed you the specific value that you can use if needed. But if you want to keep this, that's okay. You can keep this by default, right? So this is a simple lead email alert use case scenario. But again, you can extend this to any object, provided that object is supported in MassMailer. Again, if you're familiar with MassMailer, you will have an ability, like by default, we support, I think, around 5 objects. But if you want to support any other object, such as a custom object, or maybe any other object that's a standard object, provided it's got an email field, you would just come here to set up email settings and then enable that object right here. And then after which you should be able to send email alert to that object. So that's very important that you enable that object in Salesforce. Make sure that it is done, and then you can create email alert for that particular object. So this is the simple use case scenario. Again, it can get very complex. You can have series of emails if you want to send. Again, I'm not going to get into more details on how to really send series of emails in this webinar, but I'll try to talk about it in upcoming webinars. Having said that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. I'll also show my contact information here. Any questions? I will unmute if you want to talk. Yeah, I will send the recording to all of you. Meaning, if you are in our database, you will certainly receive an email with the recording. Any questions? If you have, I'm happy to clarify those questions right away. If you don't have questions right now, and if you want to maybe contact me later, here is my contact information. My phone number, my email address. I can always go to our website and then fill up a form, or you can just send an email to our company email address, hello@massmailer.io. And again, feel free to join our weekly webinar that is scheduled every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, exact same time every Thursday. So we will be announcing a new topic before the webinar. Typically, it can happen anywhere from today. You will receive an email if you are in our email database, or if you're following one of our social channels, whether it is Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you will receive a notification there as well. Or you can always look up on our website. If you go to our website, there's a link, join webinar. You can always see what is the latest webinar from MassMailer. And then if it's interesting for you, you can always join that. Once again, thank you so much for joining the webinar today, and have a great day.